Thank you and welcome. I will be talking about eDemocracy in Flanders and some initiatives of the Flemish Parliament. So I will not be talking about local government initiatives, but staying more on a national level. Who are we? We are a spin-off of the University of Leuven, involved in consultancy and research about the information society, e-society, e-government, e-participation. And we work for the European Union, the Belgian federal government, Flemish government, and also local governments. For instance, Leijendal, which is a participant in the e-voice project, is one of our people we work with. Actually, initiatives on eDemocracy in the Flemish Parliament started in 2006, where we performed a large survey of key stakeholders for an institute which is called VUTA, which is the Flemish Institute for Science and Technology Assessment, and it's attached to the Flemish Parliament. What does this institute do? It's specialized in participatory methods to study impact on technology of society. They've been involved in projects on eDemocracy, and I will talk about that. But also, for instance, this weekend there is a huge debate in the Flemish Parliament with more than 500 Flemish citizens about the future of the car and what the Parliament should do about that. So they are all the time working in participatory methods to study the impact of technology or technological issues on the society, and they are in fact a sort of an advisory board for the Flemish Parliament. We performed a research project for them about eDemocracy in Flanders. It involved a big desk research. It involved different qualitative research phases with specialists, with politicians, with user groups about eDemocracy and the future roles of it in the Flemish region. And the project was finalized with a big quantitative research project with citizens, with Flemish politicians, with what we called midfield organizations and journalists, thereby having the so-called four powers in a democracy. The result was a scientific report which is on the VUTA website, and it was somehow the first time that on a very systematic basic there was an understanding of attitudes and knowledge about these various stakeholders, because often studies about democracy focused only on politicians or only on citizens, and this was somehow the first time that we took all the layers of stakeholders involved in the democratic process in a whole. I'm not going through the whole of the study, which would be a bit too much, but I will talk about the current and desired levels of participations. One of the things in the quantitative research we did was what is actual levels of participation of citizens and what are the levels of participation they would desire to, both on the local level and on an above local level. You can see the local level on the right side and the above local level on the left side, and you can see that the red area is the current level of participation and the blue area is the level of participation they would want to have on a rescaled it on a 10-point scale. And there you can see very clearly that the point of information, consultation, active participation and co-decision making, there is a desire of citizens to be more involved in the whole political or democratical process. And you can also very clearly see that it's more situated on the local level than on an above local level. The same picture more or less with the midfield organizations, and these midfield organizations are the traditional counterparts of the government when they are involved in policy making. Also they have a level of participation with citizens and with the government which is much higher than the level they currently do. The only difference there is that you see that with midfield organizations traditionally more involved in above local levels, that their interest in participating with citizens about policy issues on not only local levels but also above local levels is very big. And also here you see a very big gap between what is actually done at the moment and their desires for the future. We also did this with politicians, and there you see almost the same view. Although one difference, politicians think the current level of participation is much higher than it is perceived by citizens. So they think that the current levels of participation is much higher than their counterparts think about it. But also there you can see a big involvement of, or a huge desire of involving citizens primarily on the local level. The politicians that we did our research with were national level, regional level, provincial level and local level. So we had a very huge amount of politicians participating in the research project. One of the conclusions is that there is an immense gap between this desired and current level of participation, whatever its form is, information, consulting, participation and co-decision making. And this is the same in each stakeholder group. Although there are some smaller differences, you can clearly see that within the three groups the results are quite similar. And that secondly, you can very clearly see that on the right-hand side there is much more desire, not only from citizens but also from politicians, to participate on the local level. We also involved the participation ladder, going from information to co-decision making, and there you can see that the desire to participate declines when you move up the decision making ladder. Midfield organizations and politicians have higher expectations than citizens of participations, but it's actually the citizens who are least satisfied with current situations. And this is this slide. And there you can see in the blue area which are the citizens, the red area which are the midfield organizations, and the yellow area which are the citizens. When it's coming for information, ICT is seen as a big driver for the democratic process. So politicians and midfield organizations have an absolute confidence in ICT as a driver for disseminating information in a democratic process. Although, and I just said it's a slide I forgot to put in there, we do a screening of all the local websites each year in Flanders. The screening is being done for this year at this very moment. And there we see that although politicians also on the local level think or say or believe in ICT as a powerful tool to spread information, that on their actual websites of these local communities we see a very pure situation, and the websites aren't used to disseminate this kind of information. We see that also on the level of consultation, and there's a session about that later on in the afternoon, that there is also a big confidence in ICT tools to get people involved and to do more consultation. But when it comes to active participation, that is thinking with government, with midfield organizations about new policy making, about new plans, then the confidence, certainly with citizens in ICT as an enabler, drops radically. Citizens were involved in this research by a representative sample, a postal survey. So we did not do an online survey, because then you would only have the so-called believers and stuff like that. We did the whole population. And when it comes to co-decision making, there it's midfield and politicians who believe least in ICT as an enabler, and it's actually the citizens that believe more in it as an enabler. So citizens believe more than politicians when it comes to deciding, to say, okay, we've got three options, which is the option where we would go for. Then citizens have a bigger belief in ICT as an enabler.